Today we're going to talk about how systems can create meaningful work and lead to personal fulfillment in the workplace. It's a bit of a journey, but we're going to have a bunch of great people to help us out along the way, keep it interesting. So let's jump in. Here are three guys who spend a lot of time thinking about what makes people feel fulfilled. The short version is that people feel better and do better when they have a sense of purpose and do meaningful work. But when you ask people what they want, what they really want in a workplace, they say things like this. Now these are awesome outcomes, but if we want to know how to get there, we're going to have to start at the beginning with a model for what is a workplace. Here's a bunch of people with defined roles organized into departments. No workplace today is complete without software, so let's take a minute to explore how the typical software selection model works. Someone who's running a department is tasked with finding solutions for that group. They go out, find a bunch of vendors who understand what they're doing and what they need, and they look at the options that those vendors present. We could think of those as wonderful presents, full of promise and very exciting. After some kind of thoughtful selection process, the person picks one of the vendors that they like the most. Now this is an absolutely critical moment. If we had a Greek chorus that would pop up in real life, they may say something like this. Here lies the moment of our undoing. Despite best intentions, this infatuation shall not last, yet its consequences shall confound us for years to come. This is a key point of inflection. When we pick a software solution like this, covering the needs of only a specific department, we're creating an obstacle to happiness and fulfillment in the workplace that will be very difficult to overcome downstream. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's see what typically happens next. The present opens and inside is software, an interface, a business logic layer, and some data. Well, the consultants come over, throw a bunch of money in, and next thing you know, we have a software product for that department. Now in the beginning, the work fits perfectly into that software. It's working as intended. But over time, the work changes a little bit, and it still kind of fits, but eventually it doesn't really fit that well at all, and there's a significant amount of things that are happening outside of the system. Once we break the seal, there's all kinds of things that are happening without the benefit of that application. Well, that can get a little frustrating after a while, so we call back the consultants and we start a somewhat endless cycle of putting time and money into these projects. Of course, it's not just that one department. Lots of departments have gone out and selected their presence, put money in, and now we have solutions all over the place with the corresponding work happening outside of them and a bunch of vendors popping around doing similar things in each department. The back row, of course, didn't get any applications. They have to make do with whatever they can figure out on their own using things like Excel and Slack and SharePoint or whatever. Underneath the surface, we've made an effort to combine these systems and integrate them with each other, which results in a lot of complicated work that certainly is not cheap. This might look familiar because it represents the state of many companies, and the next thing that we see is these kind of invisible walls start appearing between these different groups. Each department is working in its own system, and the barriers can become pretty pronounced. During the normal workday, someone is using their system and communicating by email with people in other departments. An email comes back, and next thing you know, you're in an email chain. Maybe you walk down the hall or go to a meeting or send a report or call somebody, and we do these things again and again, and that's what we call work. It's not just one person doing it, it's everybody in the organization, and it's not happening just once, it's happening again and again and again. Why is this a problem? Well, think about the way somebody spends their time in this environment. A huge portion of their day is spent doing things like remembering, reminding, asking, and answering, with whatever's left over available for meaningful work. This is unfortunate in many ways, not the least of which being that it kind of keeps people prisoner to their own experience, and it leaves many people feeling unfulfilled by the work that they're doing. We start to see people becoming disassociated from their work. They see their true selves as different from and not connected to their daily activities in the office. They watch the clock and carry stress around with them, look for side hustles, and download software that makes it look like they're actually working. This is no way to get to fulfillment in the workplace. So what could we do differently? Let's go back a few steps and imagine this. We're going to raise everybody up and give them a unified interface. This is a single pane of glass that allows you to see everything that's going on in the organization, including things that are happening in the third-party system. Below the surface, we're going to create some new data structures to have an enterprise data layer, and we can simplify those integrations to have a single point of integration with each application. Now that we've handled the top and the bottom of this stack, let's look at the functionality layer in the middle. The model here is like a 3D printer. You can tell it what to do and it spits out what you're looking for. Well, Stemmons works the same way with business process. We can create a process, signified by this orange block, and deploy it into the organization wherever it needs to be. We can fill in gaps for areas that have never really had structured processes before, And we can also create things that replace applications that are no longer really fitting or doing their job. We can create things that work across the entire organization, and we can mix things together that we've configured in Stemmons or that exist in third-party applications that we still love and use. We covered the detail of these processes in other videos, but they could really be anything that we do in almost any department in almost any company. What's nice about it though is that as our processes and businesses change, we can update our systems very easily or add new things to cover innovations or things we never used to do before. We can deploy business intelligence and data visualization across the entire organization for everybody to see. We can deploy workflow and bots and algorithms on the company level to help us do our work more effectively. Or we can reach up to bigger and more sophisticated systems like Watson and Google and AWS for things like image recognition and natural language processing and machine learning. Taking advantage of these opportunities can be transformational. People are often on the go. Stemmons allows us to use mobile applications to give people access to all the information they need. And of course we integrate with lots of different third-party systems and are adding new ones every day. Here's an example of how that works. Let's say we have an accounting system and a company comes in and we enter it through the accounting system. Next thing you know, that information is going to the central database and is showing up in lots of different business processes and reports throughout the organization. We only entered it once, but we can use it in lots of places, including in other applications that may need that information to do their job as well. Benefits like these are really valuable to the company. They can help us do things like grow organically, grow through acquisitions or partnerships, or grow through innovation and doing interesting things we've never done before. That's all great for the company. But I promised to talk about personal fulfillment, so let's take a minute on that. Steve Jobs said that people don't know what they want until you show it to them. If you take somebody caught in a traditional remember, remind, ask and answer mode of working, it's pretty unlikely that they're going to tell you they want you to reimagine the technical architecture and your approach to systems in the company to help them feel fulfilled. But that's exactly what happens. We go from something like this to a lot more space for meaningful work and a lot less time remembering, reminding, asking, and answering. There's other benefits too. Think about when openings show up in the company. Who do we hire? We don't have to hire people with as much experience. We can hire people instead who have great aptitude, who are enthusiastic, and are very flexible because they're not stuck in doing things a certain way. This means we can give people job opportunities that they would never otherwise get, which is awesome for the company and for them. Talk about meaningful work. Meanwhile, no one's trapped. We can move someone over into a new role and reduce turnover, increase tenure, and we can have job mobility, which is another tremendous source of fulfillment. All of this allows us to stop misallocating resources, use people's time more effectively, let them do more meaningful work, and feel fulfilled in the workplace. Now, before there was Steve Jobs, there was Henry Ford, and he said if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. In fact, even sometimes when you show something new to somebody, they're not necessarily excited about it. Here's an article called The Bane of the Motor Bus. This was from 1906. Many people prefer the horse bus as an altogether safer and aristocratic affair. I mean, what do you tell someone when they're attached to an old way of doing things? Well, personally, I like to channel Danny DeVito's famous speech in Other People's Money in 1991. Where he talked about the fact that you could be the best buggy whip maker in the world, but you still have to face reality about where things are going. So if you're on board with changing your approach to systems to drive positive outcomes and fulfillment at work, and other people just don't get it, tell them, look, we don't need faster horses. We need Stemmons Enterprise. And then give us a call.